Today is September 19th, 2012. It's been a month and 5 days since the 7.7 magnitude earthquake off the coast of Russia. I feel this quake was significant in the fact that it was 351 kilometers deep, and the quake registered on every volcano around the globe as an incident like it happened at those locations. It didn't show the S wave and the P waves in a normal fashion where it would register at a different location showing the waveform, and if you understand those seismograms, that shows the time that it took the earthquake from the event to reach those locations, by the wave traveling through the earth at an arc, and it'll reach each seismogram. But I find, and I've said it since this quake, that very same night, I said it over on Dutch Census Forum, that this quake is significant because of the fact, one, that it did register on each seismogram at volcanoes only, like it was almost an event at those locations. Now, I'm not saying there was an earthquake of that magnitude at each volcano, but I'm saying that it registered on the seismograms as an event, with the same strength. If you remember, there was three 5.2, 5.0, and another 5 point in California that popped up at the exact same time, two in Northern California and one in Central California, in the valley, at the edges of the valley, and the one in Central was in the bottom of the valley. And I don't know whether USGS or they claimed it was a false echo, and they took them quickly off the map. Now, I don't know if they misinterpreted, or if they're failing to give out the information, but it's too much of a coincidence, which I don't believe in coincidences, that exactly after this earthquake, 7.7 hit, that three 5.0 earthquakes struck in California, and they were quickly dismissed. Now, that region of California, the valley, which I'll show. So here's the valley of California that they're talking about, and one earthquake struck roughly here, one struck roughly here, and one struck roughly in the Central Valley. Now, I've always looked at this valley, and if you think about during time of formation, and you think of when magma and lava flows were cooling, I think of them like bread rising in an oven. You have air bubbles coming out. If you bang on the door or open it too soon, the bread will fall. I've always thought of this valley as once being level with the mountains, or higher than it is now, but during cooling it collapsed like bread would collapse in an oven. And I believe that there's lava flows, old ancient lava tubes, that are in this valley that may be awakening. And that's why I bring up the fact these 3 5 points. If that earthquake showed at all volcanic regions as an event like it was happening in those locations, then possibly it has cracked open some ancient lava tubes, and it showed as an earthquake in those events. at the locations because of the fact that it may have done that. So keep that in mind when you look at this valley, that it may have once been a lot higher, but when it cooled, air escaped. You have a lot of vents along the valley. You have a lot of lava vents, old volcanoes along this region on the outside of the valley. So it may have collapsed like that. But moving on. So within 24 hours of this 7.7 earthquake, we had on the Kuril Islands, we had a volcanic event uh, on the Kuril Islands. Now, since a month and 5 days, we've had numerous volcanoes waking up around the globe. And I'm on extinction protocol right now. And I'll show you a few, but you can look up a lot of these on your own. Now, I feel that this 7.7 earthquake was significant in the fact it was 351 kilometers deep, and it acted more like a magma blast than a fault line quake. It was more like something in the core erupted, and either there's something that was trapped in the crust that the core finally was gouging out or ate, and it broke into a chamber that exploded, maybe of gas or heck, maybe of an ancient civilization that lived over 500 million years ago. Who knows? And that was their waste product of their energy that they produced at the time. Because in the history of this earth, I'm sure that our nuclear waste will sometime reach the core of the earth because of the shifting of the plates and just this life cycle of how our soil and crust gets formed. Eventually it'll reach the center of the earth, get ground up, and be spewed out of another volcano to lay more sediment on the earth. So eventually our civilization will be at the core. So who knows, there may have been a civilization 500 million years ago, or however long it takes for today's crust to reach the core of the earth. So right after that, within 24 hours, there was earthquakes at volcanoes around the earth. And subsequently, within that month, we've had numerous 7-point earthquakes or greater along the Pacific Rim. We had Indonesia had earthquakes. They've also had volcanoes. We've had just numerous activity around the globe. 30 responses to 7.7 earthquake. Let's see if I can get to an older post here. Okay, right after that, Tofu volcano erupts, sending ash cloud 3,000 feet above Tonga Islands. That was right after that quake. Then you have Arizona, that's a 3-year period, but over 1,000 quakes. We have the mysterious Louisiana sinkhole. And I'm just going to scroll back here and show you some of the headlines. Simmering giant, 38 gas emissions reported from Mexico. Popocatépetl volcano, if that's how you pronounce it. And these are all within a month period of time. Ivan uh, Grozny Grozny volcano erupts in Kuril Islands right after that, and that was within 2 days. You got to report Arctic Circle. Our methane gas is disappearing. Japan's Sakamajia volcano releases largest amounts of ash in 20 years. That's 3 days after. Then a 6.3 off Indonesia. I'm sorry I'm doing this kind of old school um, scrolling back on these things, but I'm very busy and I didn't have time to put all these into a format to where I could just pull them each of them up fast. 5.5 off the state of Washington, 4 days after. Lava flow detected at Ecuador's volcano, Tungurahua, and that's 4 days after. Six point three or 6.2 Papua New Guinea. Alaska Cleveland volcano experienced 20th eruption. I can go on and on with these, and I'll give you a few more. But then, if you remember, we had the earthquake swarm in Southern California within that month's time also, which to me was not as common as they try to play it out to be. You had a minor earthquake swarm in Iceland related to movement of magma. Explosive activity increases on Ecuador. I try to see the significance in things, try to see a trend, and this one struck out. I mean, it just sent up a red flag as soon as I saw the inconsistencies of normalcy within the seismograms. And you guys can go back and look this stuff up if you want. But we're at a point now where it seems like a lot of the things we're seeing just stand out as significant anymore. We're seeing things that are not new, but in history, but they're a lot of these things are new in our lifetime to how things are evolving, and we should pay attention. I've never seen this many typhoons. I've never seen all these earthquakes like we're having. I haven't seen it before. And on a scale, they may look normal for numbers, as the number of earthquakes that we're seeing in a year, which I don't believe the numbers are true. But if you look at the regions where they're happening, that's significant. Because if you believe in the fact of the glacial rebound effect, if you have a balloon and you poke little tiny holes in the balloon and you lay it on the ground, it dribbles out water. If you fill it up with water, it'll dribble water out. But as soon as you put pressure on that balloon, it'll start squirting water out of every orifice that it can to relieve the pressure. And that's exactly what our volcanoes are trying to do. The more water gets put on the plate system, the more it's trying to squeeze the pressure, relieve itself through these volcanoes. And what I think we're seeing around the globe is these ancient volcanic magma tubes waking up because of the pressure that's built up behind them. And we're seeing earthquakes that aren't normal within we're seeing fault line ones, but we're also seeing earthquakes that are significant in the fact that they're not by fault line, they're by the pressure that's building up underneath the crust due to volcanic activity. And the earth needs to spew out ash around the whole globe to reset itself so it can draw the water back up onto the ice caps to refreeze, and that will reset the earth once the polar caps start retaining their weight again. And until that point, the earth will see an increase in volcanic activity, so the earth can shield itself to make it cooler in order for the polar caps to freeze again. It needs to draw that weight off of the plate boundaries or plate systems, so that it can get back to a normalcy. If you look at the earth, it has a normal life cycle. It's alive in a sense, just like anything else. It has its own living cycle. If we cut ourselves, we bleed and scab over to heal itself. Well, if the earth has pressure put on it in certain spots, it's going to try to relieve that pressure, and it's going to try to right itself. It's a natural process. But I'm going to keep going back through these if you want to keep watching, and it's just phenomenal. If you put all these things together, how much the earth is changing since, and there's been a lot of things going on since the past couple years, but this one I feel was significant. Source of loud booms in California foothills is a mystery. Well, the loud booms, I feel, are these crustal breaking of these old lava tubes. I think that they're busting up the underground, and reawakening. 6.4 off the seafloor of Macola. Earthquake swarm felt in Arizona, California, Mexico. Powerful 7.3 off El Salvador. And this is only, what, 13 days after the 7.7 in Russia. Peru, volcano shaken by swarm of 224 earthquakes. Last major eruption occurred over 540 years ago. Jangled nerves in California. Scientists had a loss to explain present Southern California quake swarm. Well, I believe that it's due to this magma blast. And I don't know if they'll ever come out and say something like that, but that's what I believe. I'm running out of time here. You guys can go back and look at this. The Canary Islands are having swarms of volcano or activity now. There's been over 440 quakes as of yesterday, in a short period of time. You guys stay alert, stay alive, and stay at peace. God bless.